In this hour of deep significance, a divine call resounds across the unseen realms, urging every heart to awaken to the urgency of the moment and to recognize that time, though ever-flowing, now carries a heightened weight. The Eternal speaks with clarity through the voices of God and the mighty Archangel Michael, issuing a critical and urgent message that compels immediate attention. This message is not born of fear but of sacred love, a protective summons that echoes with the power of light itself. Too often, whispers of guidance have been offered only to be brushed aside, and gentle signs have been overlooked, but the divine does not cease in its care. When the subtle murmurings are ignored, the message escalates, moving from the quiet of a whisper to the commanding resonance of a spiritual emergency. Now the hour has arrived when the call can no longer be postponed. A shadow of imminent threat has formed, for forces of malice have stirred and intentions darken like gathering clouds. In this unseen contest, a weapon of ill intent has been forged against the faithful. Yet even as danger approaches, the assurance of divine protection stands unshaken, encompassing those who heed the warning. The eternal guardianship of the Most High encircles every devoted soul with a shield no darkness can pierce. At the forefront of this heavenly defense stands Archangel Michael, the mighty protector, the radiant warrior who guards with unwavering strength and readiness. Clad in the armor of divine fire, Michael wields a sword of light that none can withstand, a blazing barrier against the encroachment of evil. His presence is a testament to the victory of righteousness and a reminder that heaven's armies remain vigilant. But protection is not passive. It calls for alignment and action. Therefore, the first immediate steps are to silence the distractions that dull spiritual perception, turn off the noise, lock the doors and windows of the soul as well as the home, and create a space where prayer flows without interruption. Continuous prayer, grounded in faith and attuned to divine guidance, becomes both shield and beacon, strengthening the spirit and clarifying the mind. Within this sacred vigilance, it is essential to recognize the divine signs that may come in unusual or unexpected forms. A sudden intuition, a stirring in the heart, a dream alive with symbols, each may be the Spirit's way of sharpening the senses and conveying guidance. Trust the intuition that is refined by God's Spirit dwelling within, for it is a compass pointing towards safety and light. In this battle, the power of prayer cannot be overstated. Prayer is a living force, a spiritual weapon that stands firm against darkness and despair. To call upon God and the angels with boldness is to invite direct intervention, to weave a circle of protection that the enemy cannot breach. Understand that this moment is not merely about avoiding harm but about confronting a spiritual battle and deception that seek to erode faith. The enemy would sow fear and doubt to weaken the shield of belief, but God's plan has been written from the dawn of creation and no evil can unwrite it. Every intention of darkness ultimately bends to the sovereignty of the divine will. Thus, those who stand in faith may rest in the assurance that the ending has already been secured in heaven's favor. Yet preparation is still vital. Center yourself in calm certainty, declare aloud the truth, God is my shield, and fortify your surroundings. Remain alert but not anxious, watchful yet grounded in peace. As you do so, know that angels form an invisible circle of fire and light, a sacred hedge around you and your dwelling, purifying doors, windows, and even communication channels so that only holiness may pass. This divine protective circle is not a mere symbol but a living reality for those who trust. Still, the interplay between human action and divine intervention is profound, for while heavenly guardians defend, the faithful are called to cooperate through prayer, awareness, and wise action. Every movement in this critical hour matters, for each decision made with faith reinforces the barrier of light. Fear and doubt may rise like shadows to intimidate, but they are tools of darkness and lose their power before the radiance of God's love. Trust fully, without hesitation, in the protection offered, and let faith dispel every lingering uncertainty. This moment of trial is not solely a threat but a sacred opportunity for transformation. The crisis is the doorway to spiritual awakening, a chance to emerge as a warrior of light strengthened through devotion and courage. As the heart turns wholly toward God, the soul awakens to higher truth, to the reality that transcends human senses and limitations. Divine messages often move beyond the grasp of ordinary perception. They are carried on currents of spirit, revealing that the visible world is but a fraction of existence. Invisible forces of grace and protection operate continually, guiding each step and safeguarding each breath. Therefore, the final call to action resounds with clarity: act without delay, pray without ceasing, and if prompted, move to safety or reach out to those who can be trusted. Respond with faith, for in that response lies the key to unlocking the full measure of divine intervention and protection. As the call deepens and the unseen struggle intensifies, the soul must remain steadfast, for the journey is not only about external safety but about an inner strengthening that carries eternal significance. Archangel Michael's presence is not distant or abstract. It is immediate and dynamic, a living current of divine might that surrounds and upholds those who trust in the highest. His sword of light does not merely defend, it cuts through layers of illusion and deception, revealing truth where shadows once lingered. This truth proclaims that no plot of darkness can prevail against the will of God, yet the faithful are invited to participate actively in this triumph. To do so, they must cultivate unbroken prayer, for prayer is the lifeblood of spiritual warfare, a shield woven from words of faith and a heart surrendered. It is not the length or complexity of the prayer that matters, but the sincerity and constancy, the unshakable focus on God's power to protect and deliver. In every moment of prayer, divine energy flows like a river of fire, strengthening resolve and brightening the soul with courage. Those who pray in faith are not merely speaking into silence. They are joining the eternal chorus of heaven, calling forth angels and aligning with the great plan already written. Yet in this process, vigilance is essential, for the enemy thrives on distraction and confusion, seeking to sow seeds of fear that masquerade as caution. Fear may whisper that danger is inevitable or that help will not arrive, but these are lies designed to weaken the shield of belief. To counter them, the faithful must recall the unchanging truth: God's love is perfect and drives out fear, and His protection does not falter. This awareness leads to a critical practice: discipline of the senses and thoughts. It is necessary to guard what enters the mind, to refuse the constant stream of negative reports, to silence the voices that feed anxiety. By carefully choosing what to hear, what to see, and what to contemplate, the soul maintains clarity and refuses to yield ground to darkness. In such clarity, divine signs become more visible, often appearing in unexpected ways. A sudden peace when chaos threatens, a phrase from Scripture that resonates at just the right time, a dream or vision that offers unmistakable direction. These are not coincidences but confirmations that the Spirit is guiding each step. Trusting these signs requires humility and courage, for the intellect may question or dismiss what the heart knows to be true. Yet it is through this trust that guidance unfolds and safety is assured. The circle of angelic protection, too, is both mystery and reality. One may sense a shift in the atmosphere of a room, a subtle warmth or a feeling of lightness, as though the air itself vibrates with unseen wings. Such experiences are not to be feared but welcomed, for they signify the nearness of God's messengers. Michael and his hosts stand ready, their fiery presence cleansing and guarding every entry point, doors, windows, and even the channels of communication through which harmful influence might travel. This purification is a vital part of the divine defense, ensuring that only light may enter and dwell within. Still, God invites human cooperation. While the angels defend, individuals must act wisely, securing their environment and making practical choices aligned with spiritual guidance. Locking doors, staying vigilant, and avoiding reckless exposure are not acts of fear but expressions of responsible stewardship. This interplay between divine intervention and human action reveals the partnership God desires. Heaven provides the power, but faith-filled action opens the way. Each prayer, each decision to trust, each refusal to give in to panic becomes a brick in the wall of light that surrounds the faithful. And as these actions accumulate, they create not just protection but transformation. The very crisis that threatened becomes a crucible for spiritual awakening, refining the heart and strengthening the soul. Through this process, the believer begins to sense a profound shift. What once seemed like mere survival now feels like elevation. The spirit awakens to a deeper reality where God's presence is more tangible than the material world, where love outshines fear, and where courage flows not from human effort but from divine supply. This awakening is a gift, a hidden treasure within the trial. It invites a new perspective in which the boundaries of ordinary perception fall away, revealing the vastness of the spiritual realm. Messages from God often surpass human language, coming as sudden insights, flashes of understanding, or quiet convictions that settle in the heart like unshakable truth. They show that the physical senses grasp only a fraction of existence, that invisible forces of grace and protection constantly move in places the eye cannot see. In this awareness, the final call becomes even more urgent and more hopeful. Action is required, action born not of fear but of faith. Those who hear this call are urged to pray boldly, to seek God's direction without delay, and, when prompted, to move toward places of safety or to reach out to trusted allies who can provide support. This is not a call to isolation but to wise connection and readiness. Responding with unwavering trust unlocks the full measure of divine help, for faith acts as the key that releases heaven's intervention. Every step taken in belief echoes through the spiritual realm, drawing down strength and confounding the plans of darkness. Thus, the faithful are not merely surviving a moment of danger, they are participating in a grander victory, one that affirms the supremacy of light over darkness and love over fear. The crisis becomes a testimony, the trial a triumph, and the urgent call a pathway to deeper communion with the eternal. Even as the unseen conflict unfolds and the watchful presence of Archangel Michael surrounds the faithful, the journey moves deeper into the heart of spiritual transformation, where every moment becomes both a challenge and a revelation. The divine call that began as an urgent summons now becomes a steady rhythm within the soul, a reminder that life itself is a sacred dialogue between human choice and heavenly guidance. Michael's sword of divine fire continues to blaze as a radiant barrier, cutting through the final layers of darkness that attempt to cling to the edges of awareness. His very presence speaks of victory already secured, yet it also invites a fuller participation in the ongoing triumph of light. Prayer remains the central practice, not as a mere request but as an active force that reshapes the atmosphere of the mind and heart. To pray in these hours is to stand within the very flow of divine energy, to allow every word and thought to be an offering of faith that draws the power of heaven into the present moment. Each whispered plea, each silent meditation, each declaration of trust is like a spark that ignites a wider fire of protection and strength. Through prayer, the soul learns to discern with greater clarity, recognizing the subtle movements of the spirit and rejecting the deceitful lures of fear or despair. And as discernment sharpens, the signs of God's guidance grow ever more evident, sometimes arriving as sudden clarity during quiet contemplation, at other times appearing as unexpected opportunities or providential encounters that steer the faithful away from danger and toward safety. These are the gentle fingerprints of the divine, unmistakable to the heart that listens. The enemy, still seeking to instill fear and confusion, cannot penetrate the steadfast shield of one who abides in such prayerful trust. Indeed, fear loses its grip when confronted with perfect love, for love casts out fear and replaces it with an unshakable peace. This peace is not the absence of conflict but the presence of God Himself, a calm that defies outward circumstances and allows the soul to act wisely and decisively. It is in this state of grace that the faithful find courage to continue practical preparations, securing their surroundings, caring for those entrusted to them, and remaining alert without succumbing to panic. Such actions are not a sign of doubt but an expression of cooperation with the divine plan, for God calls His people to be both watchful and wise. In this cooperation lies the profound mystery of the interplay between human action and divine intervention, a dance in which every step of faith draws heaven's resources closer. Angels respond to prayer, doors of opportunity open at the right time, and the path forward becomes clear even when circumstances seem uncertain. This partnership reveals that divine protection is not a distant promise but a living reality unfolding in each faithful decision. The circle of angelic light remains steadfast, an unbroken ring of fire and purity surrounding every dwelling and every heart that calls upon the name of the Lord. Some may even sense the soft rustle of unseen wings, a subtle shift in the air, or a sudden brightness in the mind's eye, signs that the heavenly host stands near. These experiences, far from being mere imagination, testify to the nearness of the spiritual realm and the attentiveness of God's messengers. As the faithful remain in this protected space, the crisis that once seemed overwhelming begins to reveal its hidden purpose. It is a crucible for awakening, a sacred opportunity for profound inner growth. What was first perceived as an external threat is transformed into an invitation to deeper intimacy with the divine. Through trials, faith is refined, courage is strengthened, and love is deepened. The soul begins to perceive reality beyond the limits of ordinary senses, glimpsing the vast and luminous truth that the material world is only a fragment of existence. Divine messages continue to flow, sometimes as quiet impressions, sometimes as sudden insights that pierce the heart with undeniable certainty, each one a reminder that God's ways transcend human understanding. Invisible forces of grace move constantly, orchestrating protection and guidance with precision beyond comprehension. The faithful who remain attuned to these movements discover a profound serenity, a confidence that they are never alone and that every step is encompassed by divine care. At this stage, the final call to action takes on an even greater depth. It is not only a call to pray or to prepare physically, but to live fully in the reality of God's kingdom here and now. It is a call to embody faith in every word and deed, to become a beacon of light for others who may still be lost in fear or uncertainty. Those who answer this call become instruments of hope, extending the shield of prayer and protection to families, communities, and even strangers. They become living testimonies to the power of trust, showing through their calm and courage that the promises of God are true. Acting promptly and wisely, they move when the Spirit prompts, whether to offer help, to speak encouragement, or to step into a place of refuge, knowing that obedience brings blessings not only for themselves but for all who are touched by their faith. And in their obedience they unlock the full measure of divine intervention, experiencing firsthand the miraculous ways in which heaven responds. This is the true victory, not merely escaping harm but being transformed into a vessel of light and a witness to the eternal. The once threatening night becomes a canvas for the brilliance of God's protection, and what began as a warning culminates in a revelation of love's unbreakable power. Thus the journey that started with urgency ends with awe, as every faithful heart discovers that in the presence of God and the guardianship of Archangel Michael, there is nothing to fear and everything to hope for. As the sacred narrative nears its completion, the call of heaven resounds with a resonance that reaches beyond mere words, enfolding every listening heart in the assurance of ultimate victory and eternal protection. The journey that began in urgency has unfolded into revelation, and now the faithful stand not as frightened observers but as courageous participants in the triumph of light over darkness. Archangel Michael's presence, steadfast from the beginning, continues to blaze with a brilliance that no shadow can withstand, his sword of divine fire cutting away the final remnants of fear and doubt. The power of prayer, cultivated through every stage of this spiritual alert, now shines with full strength, transforming not only individual hearts but the very atmosphere around them. Each prayer uttered in faith has woven an unbreakable shield, a tapestry of light that encircles homes, families, and communities. This shield is not merely symbolic. It is the manifestation of divine energy responding to human trust, a living proof that the partnership between God and those who believe is real and dynamic. As the faithful remain centered, they begin to perceive more clearly the vast reality beyond human senses, the unseen realm where angels move with purpose, where messages of guidance flow like rivers of light, where the boundaries of time and space dissolve in the presence of the eternal. In this elevated awareness, the mind grows calm and the heart bold, for it knows that every challenge is already embraced by divine providence. The enemy's last attempts to stir confusion or despair fall silent against this radiant peace, for perfect love truly casts out fear and leaves no room for darkness. Now the call to action takes on its highest meaning. It is not only about immediate protection or even personal transformation, but about living each moment as an instrument of God's love in a world that desperately needs hope. Those who have listened and responded to the divine warning become beacons to others, their words and deeds reflecting the strength and serenity that come from absolute trust in the Almighty. They move with wisdom, helping neighbors, comforting the anxious, and shining light into places of uncertainty. In doing so, they extend the circle of protection far beyond their own lives, proving that divine care is expansive and inclusive. Practical steps remain important. Maintaining vigilance, keeping communication channels clear of harmful influence, and following the gentle promptings of the Spirit to act or relocate when necessary, but these are now expressions of a deeper reality, that God's guidance is continuous and precise. Each faithful action, no matter how small, contributes to a larger tapestry of grace that touches countless lives. The faithful discover that what began as a crisis has become a catalyst for profound awakening. Their senses, once confined to the material, are open to a higher dimension where God's presence is more tangible than the world's distractions. They see with new eyes, recognizing divine fingerprints in daily encounters, unexpected opportunities, and moments of quiet beauty. They hear with new ears, attuned to the still, small voice that whispers direction and reassurance. And they feel with new hearts, alive to the vastness of love that sustains all creation. This is the spiritual awakening and transformation promised from the beginning, the emergence of a warrior spirit, not in aggression but in steadfast devotion, ready to stand for truth and extend compassion. In this state of awakening, the faithful understand that the ultimate reality is not bound by human limitations. God's messages transcend language, appearing as inner certainties, sudden insights, or gentle nudges that guide each step. Invisible forces of grace and protection move ceaselessly, ensuring that the divine plan unfolds perfectly despite any outward turmoil. With this realization comes deep gratitude and an unshakable joy, for the soul knows it is forever safe in the embrace of the eternal. As the final moments of this message unfold, the invitation is clear: continue to pray, continue to trust, continue to act with wisdom and love. Remain vigilant, not in fear but in readiness to serve as instruments of hope. Share the light you have received, for in doing so you magnify the victory of God's kingdom and help others awaken to their own protection and calling. The journey that began with an urgent alert now concludes as a hymn of triumph and peace. The faithful stand surrounded by the fiery host of heaven, their hearts united with the purpose of God, their spirits lifted beyond the reach of darkness. And as this message closes, let it be more than words. Let it be a living commitment to walk daily in the presence of the divine, to honor the guardianship of Archangel Michael, and to embody the unbreakable courage that comes from absolute trust in the power of light. To those who have walked through this entire revelation and felt the stirrings of courage and hope, you are invited to continue this journey of insight and spiritual strength. For more reflections and messages that uplift, enlighten, and inspire, visit Archangel Inspire on YouTube, where each new offering is crafted to help you stay rooted in faith and radiant with the strength of divine protection. Subscribe there today to stay connected with a growing circle of light, and let every update be a gentle reminder that you are never alone, always guarded, and forever embraced by the boundless love of God and the vigilant care of Archangel Michael.